So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast, trying to stay local to Central New York. Brandon, 20 years ago today, Kurt Angle won his very first world title, defeating The Rock in Albany, New York. So I'll ask you the question. You could have ringside seats to an event that happened prior to today in Albany, New York. I'll give you two options. Edge cashing in Money in the Bank on John Cena, or Kurt Angle winning his first belt at No Mercy 2000. Which one are you sitting ringside in Albany?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to have to go with Edge. I think Edge cashing in would be the way I would go. What about you?
Well, if you're going to say that, then you make me feel good. I wasn't ringside, clearly, but I was at that event, and it was pretty exciting. But I can tell you, I just started really getting into wrestling around the time Kurt Angle won at Albany, and I was a huge Kurt Angle fan. It was probably my first favorite wrestler. So it really hurt that that event took place just 2 hours from where we're recording this show. He won the title, which is really unheard of at that time because he's a heel against The Rock, and it happened in Albany on a pay-per-view that I begged my parents to take me to. We couldn't go, but a few months later we ended up going to Monday Night Raw. So things ended up working out, and my wrestling fandom stayed the same. But I guess I would wish I could go back to No Mercy 2000, mostly because Rikishi's got it coming. I know he had something to do with Stone Cold Steve Austin getting hit, and that was the event that he had it coming. Or was it Triple H? Or was it I can't remember. But either way, we got a lot to talk about, and the Heel to Face podcast starts right now.
So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Brandon and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast is on the air. We're joined with Brandon Clements. You can find him on social media at Icebreaker21. Myself at KRock Jared. You can find me on social media there. My real name is Jared Wicks. And this is the program at Heel to the Face on Twitter. Make sure if you're following us on Twitter, well, you got all the links there. But if not, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, on iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get our podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and notified of all our shows. And this week, we have a big one. Hell in a Cell coming up this weekend. Bound for Glory coming up this weekend. They're smart enough not to put it on Sunday night. And Halloween Havoc, by the time we film another episode of this show, Halloween Havoc will have taken place as well. But we'll start things out with AEW last night as of recording this. AEW, a pretty interesting show. What did you make of the Jericho, MJF, dinner demure, the music man ridiculousness? I've never seen anything like it in wrestling. I'm not 100% sure I liked it. What about you?
I'm completely with you on that. I like it was, to me, it was so bad that it was good, I guess. I mean, it was. Here's the thing: if it was WWE doing something like that, it would get destroyed all over social media. So I don't know what to make of it. I can't say I hate it, but I can't say I love it. It's I don't know, man. It was really weird. I mean, I don't know, man. It was just tough. It's tough to really gauge it. I mean, are you on the same? You're on the same playing field as me, right?
Wrestling and musicals have never really kind of mixed before.
Yeah.
And, I feel like AEW gets a pass on all of this stuff.
Of course they do.
Get a pass on doing all of this stuff because they're AEW, and I feel like the marks and the real hardcore wrestling fans out there, whenever AEW does it, they look at it like they're being unique, they're being different. But when WWE does it, it's not the same. WWE has got more of a hard line when it comes to what people will take and what people will be like, that's crap, that's unoriginal. Kind of funny when we talk about that is, so about 1 year ago, Alexa Bliss tweeted out at WWE on their official account, made us aware that she tweeted this out, that the very first Firefly Funhouse took place last April. And it was right about that time Alexa Bliss said this could be intriguing, obviously foreshadowing to what we see nowadays with Alexa Bliss being a part of the Firefly Funhouse. And going back, though, and reading that original tweet and reading the tweet that went along with the debut of the Firefly Funhouse, people were like, I can't believe they're bringing Bray Wyatt to do this. I can't believe he went from a world champion to this nonsense. It's Pee-wee's Playhouse, like Alexa Bliss. Like, how could you even find this intriguing at all? Don't even respond to this crap. And it's like, are you kidding me? I personally at the time thought it was one of the best gimmicks that wrestling had in years. I still do. And people weren't on board with that, feel that way now. But, it just shows you right there, people in WWE were like, what is this crap? And it's like, what do you mean, what is this crap? This is some great stuff. Now, I'll give it to AEW. It's different. They could have just put out 2 hours of wrestling. They have some great matches. They had that number one contendership tournament start last night. Kenny Omega came out with a pretty awesome, sweet, brand new entrance. But it was great to break up some of that monotony. Great to have something to talk about other than wrestling. And you and me, we talk about the Raw Attitude days. Most of those days, we're not talking about matches. We're talking about things like the Rock, It's Your Life. We're talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin's beer bath. So to have something that we're talking about from AEW last night that wasn't just, that's a good match, is good. Because that's the thing. AEW has got some really good wrestling. And if they can mix in that entertainment as well that WWE has, and then they got a good thing going for them. And kind of staying on AEW and some of that entertainment. I don't know if you caught it. I know it would be something that you would catch. I catch it too. But homage to you, Eddie Kingston during his promo last night, wearing the Syracuse University Carmelo Anthony jersey. I don't know if you caught it.
Yes. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Props to our boy there for giving a little mellow and little Q shout out. You can't go wrong with rocking a throwback like that. That's just his swagger, anyways. I will say this: I know the moment of the night, or the segment of the night was, Jericho and MJF deal, whatever you want to call it. Again, it wasn't bad. It was okay. I don't know. It's something I just can't explain it. It was just it's different. But the moment of the night for me was Penta and Phoenix. I thought that was the best match of the night. I thought that was the most entertaining thing of the night. Those two lucha stars, those guys are absolutely fantastic. They tore the house down, and Phoenix came out on top. It was to me, that was probably the match of the week from all brands, I believe. I thought that was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, no, there was some good matches last night in that tournament, including moving out of that tournament, the number one contenders now in the world of tag teams, the Young Bucks. They ended the show kind of fighting there with FTR. That'll be a match that takes place at Full Gear between those guys for the tag team titles. NXT last night caught a little bit of NXT. I think AEW definitely, from what I saw, stole the night. NXT, not horrible, but they are building up to some more feuds and some more matches heading into Halloween Havoc. And, at this time, let's just move right into where we're moving into Halloween Havoc. I got the match card right in front of me. Might as well make some predictions, see what you think is going to happen. One of the matches that was named last night, Cameron Grimes and Dexter Lumis in a haunted House of Terror match. I thought the other two gimmick matches were enough, but a haunted House of Terror match. Do you see this being cinematic, or do you see it being a match where they just incorporate some weird elements?
I think it's going to be a little bit of a cinematic piece, I believe. I think Lumis is perfect for this kind of pay-per-view because of his his gimmick and how he plays this odd character, kind of a creep. I know you watched it on NXT this week. While our boy there, our Carolinian boy there, he was sitting there talking. He was talking to the blonde. I forget her name off the top of my head, but they're doing the backstage interview. And you can see Lumis kind of peeking around, and Grimes doesn't even know. That Carolina boy, it was funny because he had that southern twang in his accent when he was getting nervous, and I thought he was selling it really well because he's like, I don't know about this match. Maybe Regal has that accent. I don't know. It was, to me, I thought it was good. I think Grimes he's one of the few bright spots I've seen from the newer wrestlers. I feel like he's been a very pleasant surprise to me because at first I didn't think it was going to stick. I didn't think his gimmick was going to go as far as it has. And I think he's had some really good matches. He's had some good moments with Finn, Damian Priest, and now Dexter Lumis. Cameron Grimes in 2021, we could be talking about a potential NXT championship. That's how good this guy is. And I've been entertained with him. So I'm curious to see how they're going to play this out. But I really believe it's going to be a very cinematic style match. But I mean, what do you think?
No, yeah, I think the other two matches that are the spin the wheel, make the deal, they'll be in the ring. So I guess this seems like it'll be kind of a cinematic match. But with that being said, NXT last night and how great AEW was, while we were just having this conversation, it kind of made me realize, wait, I buried the lead here. Pat McAfee coming out with the tag team champions last night, or revealed to be with the tag team champions, Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. Pat McAfee back at NXT. I know you loved his original spot there in NXT. Are you excited to see what he's got coming forward?
Yes, I was waiting for you to bring up Pat McAfee. I wanted to see how long it was going to take here because, of course, I noticed Pat McAfee. I saw the mask. I saw the way he way his hair is and everything. I knew right away it was Pat McAfee. Just the way he was walking and carrying himself, I knew it was Pat McAfee, and I love it. I love what he did. I thought it was great that the Undisputed Era, he took them out of the tag team title picture and potentially cost them an actual championship victory. But at the same time, we're finally getting Lorcan and Burch a championship. These guys have been some of the best tag team workers in all of wrestling, and that includes AEW, you name it. These guys are fantastic. They're old school. They're gritty. They're just tough dudes, and I absolutely loved it. And I love that they were showing a little bit of that heel in them, too, where you saw the low blow at the end of that match there. So I like this tough grittiness, and I'm glad WWE is finally going to do something with these two tough guys. I've always enjoyed their style. It's really in your face. It's gritty. So if they're aligning themselves with Pat McAfee, which I think that's what they're doing here, or at least he's screwing over Undisputed Era, I mean, what could go wrong with that? I think having a mouthpiece like Pat McAfee for those two guys could do wonders for their career. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, no, Pat McAfee, so far everything he's touched in NXT has been gold. He is there right now. He is kind of like the NXT savior to competing with AEW. And I'm not saying because NXT doesn't have a lot of talent, but they, I guess, don't have that spark plug, that like outside of wrestling thing that kind of keeps us entertained, that rock, I guess, if you say that Stone Cold Steve Austin, that kind of person that kind of transcends the wrestling business. Pat McAfee does that. And that's what is kind of keeping NXT going afloat here. I mean, they got some great wrestling, and AEW has great wrestling, but NXT's got to have that, I guess, WWE, stamp on it, where they have the really entertainment side of it. And Pat McAfee, not just being somebody who's outside of wrestling, but on the fact that he is actually really pretty good at wrestling for someone who's not a professional wrestler. He's probably watching that match he had at TakeOver a while back was one of the best, if not the best, non-wrestler performances in a wrestling ring I have ever seen.
Yeah, Pat McAfee just shows he's a true athlete. I don't care, people talk about, oh, he was a punter, this and that. That dude's an athlete. And you know what? And he showed how great of an athlete he was when he had very limited training. I still consider him a wrestling novice, in ring competition, and he put on a show, back at the TakeOver a few months back with Adam Cole. I will tell you this right now, Pat McAfee is good for WWE. I think you're right. I think it's something they need to keep up with AEW. I think AEW's been the better show. Dynamite's been better than NXT, I think. But I have to ask you something real quick. On this NXT front, what are you making of the Austin Theory getting in his Jeep and leaving the show? Do you think it's going to be someone? Do you think somebody's going to pick him up as a manager? Like, do you think Robert Stonebrand or something, picks him up and brings him back to the promised land? Because he's been losing a lot of matches lately.
Yeah, no, I think Austin Theory is a really good talent. Yeah. I think he's one of the better talents in NXT, and I want to see something click and connect with him to really get him over. I don't necessarily know if he's in a world title picture yet, but I'd like to see him pretty soon in like a North American title picture because I think he's that good of a talent.
Yeah, I will say this too. Speaking of the world title pictures, I will say this, and not to jump all the way around. I want to correct something from a previous episode. I've been watching some more episodes going back on the network, and just kind of listening to things and reading things. I gotta backtrack on my criticism a little bit of Big E. I mean, it was I would say more of a minor criticism where I kind of put him in that mid-level championship US IC title. Honestly, I think he can be a world champion. I really do believe that, and I wanted to kind of button that up a little bit because it wasn't a jab at Big E. At the moment we were talking about it, I was, I still think he's a mid card guy, and he's a solid mid card guy. There's a lot of great solid mid card guys, but I could see him getting a title run. I mean, if Kofi Kingston gets one, I mean, why can't Big E? I guess. I mean, what's your take on that? I know we're jumping around, but I just want to get
I think my take on that right now is the fact that he is somebody who could hold the world title. I mean, we learned anyone can hold the world title. We'll talk about a documentary next week that we watched this past week about how anyone can hold a world title. But speaking to Big E and just staying on that topic, yeah, he could definitely hold the world title. The problem is right now, especially, I think the two champions at the top of SmackDown and Raw are just so very strong, and Roman Reigns. And with things coming up with the Royal Rumble and Survivor Series and WrestleMania kind of coming on the horizon, I just don't see Big E getting in that picture before at least WrestleMania, if not after that. Because, like I said, Roman Reigns is on a impeccable train right now that's going full force towards people like The Rock. Drew McIntyre, obviously, he's got a big match this weekend against Randy Orton, but I could see him maybe having a rematch down the road against a Brock Lesnar or something like that. So where Big E stands in the world title picture right now, not there, but I would say I would like to see him maybe go up the singles card rank, maybe hold a singles belt again, like a U.S. belt or an IC belt, and get really involved in that, at least for the time being, and maybe next summer or after that, maybe put him in some matches, or even put him in some matches against Roman Reigns to kind of build him up. Maybe not give him the belt, but kind of maybe like at a February pay-per-view leading up to WrestleMania, kind of give him a spotlight like you kind of did to Kofi Kingston's and the Mustafa Ali's back in the day in the Elimination Chamber.
Now,
and
I got to. You just mentioned somebody I really want to talk about too, Mustafa Ali. I got to ask you, are you in on Retribution or are you falling flat on this? I mean, what's your take on it at this point?
So staying with Retribution now on Monday Night Raw, he revealed this week that he was the hacker, which I'm actually pretty happy about because it was a storyline that we actually came to the conclusion. I didn't know if we were ever going to come to the conclusion of who the hacker was, or that was just going to be kind of thrown to the wayside and forgotten about. Yeah. But they tied it right back in to Retribution. And no, I think right now Mustafa Ali as the head of Retribution, it's a good spot for him. I like it better than him just... let's say when Kofi Kingston was in that spot a couple years ago to Elimination Chamber, ended up getting the world belt. I felt that was just, he had a really strong performance at Elimination Chamber, so people got behind him. But Mustafa Ali now, he can have a strong performance, but he's going to get the character to go with it. And he's going to actually start facing some legitimate competition outside of just, hey, he had a good match, let's get this guy, some heavyweight matches. No, I think like maybe this week at Hell in a Cell, he might be facing Bray Wyatt, or there might be some sort of Bray Wyatt versus Retribution kind of angle. So, that's a way to get him, I get the notoriety and into the heavyweight division and into the main card division much better than probably what would have happened if he would have went there back a couple years ago.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing too. I think we might be the minority on this in the internet wrestling community because I was reading a lot of crap online, and I think it's crap that Retribution's awful and this is terrible. They should just scrap it. It just started, for God's sake. It just started. And let's remember, and you know me, and we've done this show for a couple years now, I was not a big fan of the New Day. And you remember when the New Day first started? It wasn't going that well. But then something just clicked, and they've been around, and they just did their split after, 6 years together? So here's the thing. For all the internet wrestling people out there, guess what? You're going to see it. You're going to see it a little bit longer. I think they're just marinating it right now. I think Mustafa, I think that backstage segment that he had this past week on Monday Night Raw, I think that was the best, and I think it was the strongest he's ever looked in front of a camera. And he was very well spoken. He had his crew right there with him. I think this Retribution, and I'm not saying it's going to be up there with the Shield or the New Day. I'm just saying we could see. I mean, you got to give it some time to marinate. You can't just because they lost a match or lost 2 matches that it's going to fall flat. I don't agree with that. I think the internet wrestling community is again jumping to conclusions. So for me, I think let's give it some time to marinate. And I also like the names I like the people that are in it. That's the thing. The members of Retribution are all good competitors. So here's the thing. Why don't we give it some time? The internet wrestling community can just shut up about it. Let's see how they do, and then let's talk about it in 3-4 months from now. That's just my take on it.
Staying on Monday Night Raw, one thing I liked this week that I saw, and we've lost the Raw Underground. That was canceled a few weeks back. I think they made the official announcement about a week ago that Raw Underground is no more. But something that was pretty good on Raw Underground that has been salvaged, and he's now with AJ Styles, is Jordan Omabagian, if I'm saying that correct, or Omabagian, or...
Hey, I'm just going to make it eeasy for you. We're going to call him J.O., all right? We're just going to... J.O.
So, 7'3" monster saw with Shane McMahon, which I think during the time at Raw Underground, and probably, even the time that he was a ninja for a minute with Tozawa being misused, I think he was standing on some bricks or something like that, because Shane McMahon's not a short guy, and if you saw him during Raw Underground, it made Shane McMahon look like he was 4'7". But the guy is legitimately 7'3", even if WWE tries to make him look even bigger than that. But regardless, he's the biggest guy in WWE. He's an opposing force. And for AJ Styles to move over to Monday Night Raw and to have him join him and give him something to do and give him, I guess that's with him being 7'3" and him being a big presence, this former South Florida Bull in Division I basketball. I think that's a perfect spot for him. I think that reminds me of a lot of like Deacon Batista back in the day.
Kevin Nash, back when he was being like the bodyguard for Shawn Michaels back in the day. You know why? And not to cut you off, this is what my thought is on it. I think the reason why they're putting J.O. with Styles is, number one, AJ Styles is one of the best in the world at what he does. So he can help J.O. I'm just going to keep calling him J.O. Develop his skills, because I think they see potential in this guy, but he's not ready from an in-ring perspective. He's so raw that I think if you put him with AJ, he's gonna learn the ropes. He's gonna, and pardon the pun, but he's gonna learn the ropes. He's gonna learn from AJ Styles, and I think he could develop into something good. Do I see him being Kevin Nash good? Because at first, and this is the God's honest truth, anybody can go back and read it. Kevin Nash was, at first, he was not good. He was very raw. And what did he end up doing? He had a pretty damn good career. I mean, the guy's a legend. We all know that. I'm not saying J.O. is going to be a legend, but it can't hurt, like you said, getting the AJ Styles rub, so to speak, where he can learn from one of the best. And he's also a veteran, so he can learn how to do things the right way.
That might have helped Great Khali back in the day to be someone's manager, someone's bodyguard, someone's enforcer, than, just throwing him out there. Because the problem is, I guess, as the enforcer and as the bodyguard, he's protected. Not technically being in these matches, he's not going to have a win-loss record per se. And the problem you have with those Great Khalis in the past is they would go on win streaks and they'd defeat all these jobbers until they eventually got to the main guys like the John Cenas of the world. And if John Cena is to remain the champion, well, then these guys lose, and that immediately drops their credibility. So we don't want to see JO's credibility lost right away by having him lose to Drew McIntyre or Randy Orton or Roman Reigns or any of these people. He can stay, removed from the matches and kind of just show his imposing figure, helping AJ Styles. And if AJ Styles wins or loses, that's on AJ Styles, but it doesn't make him look any less imposing. And I go back to the Deacon Batista thing. I mean, I remember when Batista came in there, I was younger at the time, and I thought, why aren't they using this guy to, win matches and be the world heavyweight champion? This guy could beat everybody. And then looking back on it, I said, perfect, because if they would have used him in 2001 and 2002 to do those things, he might not have been around in 2007 fighting The Undertaker at WrestleMania 23. You got to bring him in slowly. Just because of these big imposing presences, you can't just immediately Great Khali him and throw him to the main event. You got to get us to want to see what this guy can do. You want to get him to have his talents restrained so that when he does come out, he's got a longer career and it's more hidden. Because again, if you show all your cards right away, then we saw it all right away. Umaga and Great Khali were perfect examples of that. When we saw their cards, the trick was over. But with this guy, you get him held back a little bit, and it's going to make us want to see more in the future from him.
Here's the thing too, and I'm gonna. There's 2 points I want to make, just following up what you're talking about with Batista. Number one, it never hurts to work with a veteran like Devon Dudley. Devon's been around the business, and he's still in the business. He's been around a long time, So he was an established figure as one of the Dudley Boys, but it was good to get the experience and learn from Devon because Devon, as we know, is a producer. He works with people even to this day. The part 2 I want to bring up is we were just talking about this guy, a few minutes ago. Big E was also like that. Remember when he was Ziggler's lackey. He was the muscle for Ziggler. So you know what? And look what happened there. It's a great recipe because you saw Big E, and everyone's like, oh man, this guy looks really good. He's making Ziggler look good. When are we going to see him do his thing? So I think this is the formula WWE needs to do with guys that have the physical tools, but maybe not the in-ring skill set yet. It's perfect to get him with somebody that's, it's a solid worker, maybe solid on the mic, get the whole package in, and look how good they can do. I'm not trying to compare J.O. to those guys like Big E and whatnot. The jury's way out on that one. We got to see what he does. But it does not hurt, and I think it's WWE is doing it. I think they're being smart about it. Let's see how the kid does, and let's see if he can do something because he has something that most people don't have. He's 7'3". Okay, I think if they can build him up the right way, the guy can be really an asset to for WWE going forward.
Yeah, Enzo Amore says it perfectly. You can't teach that.
You can't teach that.
And with Big E, you're talking about it's a perfect example to talk about him being that with Dolph Ziggler for the fact that if he does have a good singles run now, or he even is thinking of going on a singles run, what makes me think that that's even believable, because let's say he was just in the New Day this whole time and we only knew him as Big E from the New Day, I'd probably be like, why is everyone even talking about him going on a singles run? Like, what are you talking about? But it's only my recollection and my memory of when he was with Dolph Ziggler, and he wasn't this cheery, pancake throwing, joke telling Big E that makes me think, wait a minute, now he has the New Day skill set, but if he can have the New Day skill set with the Big E with Dolph Ziggler character, those two things will go together. But if he just came out of Dolph Ziggler Big E, then he wouldn't have had the skill set. And if he just came out of New Day Big E without Dolph Ziggler, he wouldn't have the attitude. So it's perfect now. If he goes into a singles run, he will have the attitude that he can bring back from when he was a bodyguard, and the skill set that he's acquired this whole time with the New Day, and put them together for a run.
And speaking of the New Day, one last note on that. I have to say this. If it isn't for Kofi, Big E, and Xavier Woods getting together as the New Day, I don't see any one of those guys in WWE today. Because guess what? If you remember correctly, all three guys were stale at that point before the New Day really got in together. And I honestly, I hate saying this, but if it wasn't for them getting together and becoming this New Day group, I don't think any one of them is in the business in WWE today. They're probably doing independent circuits somewhere or even on AEW. That's my take on that.
So moving back to NXT, where we started this whole conversation a long time ago, just to wrap up the NXT Halloween Havoc so we can get some predictions here. Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano, as well as Io Shirai versus Candice LeRae. That's your men's and women's heavyweight championship matches, and both are spin the wheel, make the deal. Again, I've asked you this, I think, twice now, and I'll ask you again. Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, are they leaving with the championships this time around?
For the love of God, can they please just put the titles on the Garganos? Yes, finally it happens. Let's do it. They need to do it. They're wasting time. Get the belts on the Garganos this coming week.
All right. So with that being said, we're going to transition to another wrestling company. I actually watched a little of them on TV this week, kind of weirdly, not on purpose, but either way. Their WrestleMania pay-per-view, one that they put a lot of work into, is Bound for Glory. And while I've always been kind of upset of Bound for Glory being their WrestleMania because it didn't come organically like the AEWs of the world or the WWEs, where WrestleMania was the big first pay-per-view. And with AEW, I think their WrestleMania is probably Double or Nothing because, again, that was their first big pay-per-view. But TNA, Impact Wrestling, down the line, it did it differently where it just kind of threw a dart at a map and decided this is going to be our WrestleMania pay-per-view. Personally, I think Slammiversary should be their WrestleMania pay-per-view because it is their anniversary. It is when everything started. It is, but they decided they're going to call their WrestleMania Bound for Glory. They're going to give it a shot this year. And hey, I mean, think about it. This company's been around for a long time. I'm not sure exactly what number Bound for Glory we're on, but it's like 17, I think, which is crazy to think because, I mean, we talk about WrestleMania 17 being, one of the best WrestleManias of all time. And here we are, this company is putting on their 17th signature event, and yet they still got a lot to prove. You know what I mean? So we'll go to some of the matches here. The championship match, a guy we used to love back in the day. I think he put 205 live on the map. Rich Swann. He's taking on your former favorite guy from Sanity, Eric Young, with the championship on the line. Are you interested in seeing these guys wrestle? Do you like these guys? I like these guys' style, and it's going to be interesting in a heavyweight matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I like both their styles. I think they were both underutilized in WWE. I think we can obviously agree on that. Who comes out on top of that solid matchup? That's a good one. I would just keep it on EY. I think keep it on EY. I think Eric Young is the, he needs a little bit longer of a run. I think he needs to be, again, I'm going to use the word marinate. Let's marinate this championship run a little bit more. But again, Rich Swann will be a champion soon. I think that's without a question.
Another match I think could actually be pretty good is for the Impact, the Knockouts Championship, what they call their Women's Championship in Impact right there. Deonna Purrazzo, former WWE NXT, trying to be something, is their current champion, taking on Kylie Ray, not LeRae. I'm thinking of Candice LeRae, but Kylie Ray. And she's one of the hottest things in indie wrestling. She's scheduled to be at the upcoming 2CW show if that happens in December. She's one of the hotter. She's a short kind of firecracker, kind of wrestler. Kind of reminds me a lot of Casey in NXT.
Okay.
Yes. So it kind of reminds me a lot of her. I think this match has a chance to be pretty good because when it comes to women's wrestling, I know it's called the Knockouts Championship, and back in the day it was just like the Divas Championship, but Impact Wrestling has evolved, even though in their name it's not evolved. It still makes it seem like it's a Diva belt. But these are two solid women's wrestlers. Yeah. So, I definitely think that could be a match, but I think a match that, even if you're not an Impact Wrestling fan, is one that you're going to look forward to. The Motor City Machine Guns, who are been in Impact Wrestling, pretty much put them on the map per se. Well, back in the day in the 04s, 05s, they take on the Good Brothers, who are making their shot at the Tag Team Championships, as well as the North with Ethan Page and Josh Alexander. They've been in Impact Wrestling. I saw them. They were the Tag Team Champions. They were the hottest tag team in Impact Wrestling about a year ago, before the Good Brothers and the Motor City Machine Guns came back. They were your lead runners of Impact Wrestling, and they held the belt. I want to say for like the longest time in Impact Wrestling history. I want to say it was over a year. Those guys on the indie circuit, in Ring of Honor, they've been all over. They're a solid tag team. As I said, they've been holding these tag team belts. They're not currently the champions, but they've held them for about a year. And then Ace Austin, he rounds out the final tag team, which, again, he's a pretty good guy. I don't know if you watch any Slammiversary. I think he was in the X Division match. Ace Austin, he kind of reminds me a lot of Darby Allin.
Yeah.
In AEW. So that's expected to be a good match. Here's one I think you might want to watch. EC3. He showed up after Slammiversary. He takes on Moose in a match at Bound for Glory as well this Saturday night. Eddie Edwards, the former Impact champion, taking on Ken Shamrock with Sami Callihan. Ken Shamrock, right before Bound for Glory in a special pre-show on Access TV, is going to be inducted into the Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame. And all I can say about that is it's about time he's inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame. I don't know what they're taking so long to do. Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame, do I think it should exist? No. Because or if it does exist, I feel like this should be their first year of it. It shouldn't have existed prior. I think they're just starting to reach a level where they have some names that they've had in their past. Ken Shamrock is definitely one that's solid. I mean, he was their first world champion, oddly enough. But he should have probably been their first inductee, and this should be the first shot at an Impact Hall of Fame. But overall, I don't think they should have a Hall of Fame. And if they were to do anything Hall of Fame-ish, I think their best bet when it comes to legitimacy is their Hall of Fame should be tied into the actual Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. It's a traveling one. It used to be in Amsterdam. I think right now it's in Texas. But WWE, I feel, is the only company that can kind of go it alone when it comes to a Hall of Fame. Yeah. They're kind of the monopoly brand. Anyone else, I think, should definitely, if they want to be legitimate, should go in with other companies in the overall Hall of Fame. Because let's be real, Impact Wrestling, AEW, Ring of Honor, all these companies are kind of under the umbrella of everything outside of WWE. New Japan's different, and that's a different country. But with all the ones that are in the United States, I think there's WWE and there's everyone else. And a lot of these ones don't have the history. The AEWs, the Impact Wrestlings, the Ring of Honors, they don't have the history. So I think for them to do Hall of Fames and them to be legitimate, they should probably go in it together. You know, there should be like Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. There maybe should be like an Impact wrestler gets inducted as part of the overall Pro Wrestling Hall. You know, maybe each year one inductee from each company or something like that to be in the overarching Hall of Fame. But to have their own Hall of Fame,
you can't have it separate. You can't have it separate. I mean, unless you're WWE, then yes. But the rest of the companies, you're right. They should merge it and be a part of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. I 100% agree with you.
So the final match is Call Your Shot Gauntlet match. Sorry, I'm kind of squinting here. It's a small print in front of me. But where the winner of this match chooses any championship match of their choosing except for Heath Slater and Rhino. If Heath Slater wins, he wins a full-time contract with Impact Wrestling. And if neither wins, then Rhino is fired. The match has AC Romero, Alicia Edwards, Cody Deaner, I was going to say Dreamer, Brian Myers, as we all know, as Kurt Hawkins, Havoc, Heath Slater, Hernandez, Rhino, Tyra Valkyrie, Tenila Dashwood, formerly what is her name?
Tenila Dashwood, she was Emma.
Emma, and Tommy Dreamer, and to be determined. So that's kind of interesting because you have a couple stipulations there. And you got women mixing with men. Obviously, you got Havoc and Emma mixing in that match with Rhino and Heath Slater and Myers, formerly Kurt Hawkins. Winner gets a shot at any championship they want. Heath Slater is he's looking for a job. He's looking for a contract because apparently they saw the WWE's I Got Kids gimmick, and they said, how can we get in on that? So they're trying their hands at he's got kids. Let's make him fight for a paycheck kind of gimmick. But overall, I mean, I think the interesting part of that is the mix of men and women and the whole – it's like Money in the Bank but with men and women, and you don't know if it's going to be somebody winning and challenging for a women's championship match, a men's championship match, and that could go so many different ways. So overall, Bound for Glory, I think is something interesting to watch, and it's definitely something to pay attention to. Maybe even watch it as a precursor like you would an NXT TakeOver the next day prior to what we're about to talk about, and that is this weekend's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view from WWE this Sunday night. Not a lot of matches on the card so far. One I think that is going to be added is going to be something to do with Retribution and Bray Wyatt. But as of right now, all you got are 4 matches. Jeff Hardy versus Elias. We saw he's got his new album coming out this upcoming Monday. He was putting out his concert on Raw this past week before Jeff Hardy got involved. But glad to see Elias back. Can't wait to see him back in action. Please, I hope this is the start of a good Elias push. We obviously all remember prior to this, we were begging for his push and never really got it.
Yeah.
You got Sasha Banks and Bayley inside Hell in a Cell. Sasha Banks has been there before. Bayley has not. So who is leaving with this championship belt between Bayley and Sasha Banks?
Ooh, I still think Bayley's going to win. I think Bayley hangs on to the title. I believe she does not lose the title, and I've said it on previous episodes a while back. I don't think she loses the title until WrestleMania. I think they got to set it up, build this feud up even more, make it Sasha, Bayley, WrestleMania, Sasha takes the title then. That's my thoughts on it. Yours?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I feel like because Sasha's so good in Hell in a Cell, it's going to be hard to have her lose. I'm very curious to see what Bayley's going to do inside Hell in a Cell. We've already seen Becky Lynch with Sasha. We've already seen Charlotte with Sasha. So I'm just very curious to see what Bayley can do inside the cell for her first time in there in a solo match. I think I'm going to take Sasha Banks on this one. I'm taking Sasha winning this Hell in a Cell match. As we move into Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. Now, what do you make of the cliffhanger they did? They could only do this in the Thunderdome. They couldn't have done it in front of a live crowd. But on Monday Night Raw, Drew McIntyre gets inside the cell with Randy Orton, shuts the door behind, and obviously the show ends there. Now, in front of a live audience, there would have been something. Obviously, off the air, they would have had a match. They would have had a feud. We would have known because someone with a camera phone would have told us what then happened after Raw went off the air. But because there's no crowd, it literally nothing happened. They just kind of went on this cliffhanger ending. Vince McMahon actually approved of this cliffhanger ending, liked it, liked the fact that they were going to go off with just Drew shutting the door and Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre inside this cage. And we talked about this before, this Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. I'm not a big fan of it because I think Hell in a Cell matches should be reserved for when they're warranted, not just for when they're scheduled, like at a pay-per-view called Hell in a Cell. But this match, I think this one kind of warrants it. I feel like if this was No Mercy, this still might be a Hell in a Cell match because they've been feuding for quite a while now. They've had multiple matches. They've had ambulance matches. I'm excited to see Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. I don't know how you have Randy Orton lose again, but I'm very curious to see, and I think Drew McIntyre is winning regardless.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we were just highlighting it earlier. I mean, Drew and Roman are two of the strongest champions we've had in a really long time. And I think it'd be hard for anybody, even Randy Orton, to break through. I don't see either title changing hands at all until WrestleMania season. I don't see it. I think, and I said that with Bayley. I think the champions are just so strong that, I'm kind of hoping that if they're going to lose the title and there's a change of hands, so to speak, that we do it in front of the fans. But I just think the titles, where they're at, where the titles, Bayley, Roman, Drew, those wrestlers, those competitors are just they're so tight, they're so tough, they're so strong. You got to keep the belt on them. That's just me.
The main event is going to be, or one of the main events, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso in an I Quit Hell in a Cell match. We hope this ends better than last year when we had the Hell in a Cell match between Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins that ended in a disqualification, which kind of made a mockery of the whole what a Hell in a Cell is out there for. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this might be the pay-per-view that has the most Hell in a Cell matches, because while they've had the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view before, I think they've reserved them for about 2 main matches. But this weekend they're expecting 3 Hell in a Cell matches. To me, that's a little too much because, I mean, they can't. Hell in a Cell, I mean, it's supposed to be a show stealer. And you got 3 matches on the card that are inside Hell in a Cell. And you got 3 chances to really have some show stealers, but one of them has to be a dud. You can't have 3 unbelievable matches because the problem is who's going to follow who.
It's got to be 2
or less.
Do it. You do a men's match in the Hell in a Cell. You do a women's match in the Hell in a Cell, and you call it a day. Because there's a thing called there's too much of a good thing. That'd be too much for me. I think it would be a little over the top. I think you have 2 matches, the Bayley Sasha, and then I would do the Drew Randy Orton match, and that's it. Do the other matches in other styles. That's just me.
Yes, because there's only so many announce tables that you can go through.
And that's true.
Yes, and there's only so many times that you can break through the cage. I mean, they're expecting this one Hell in a Cell to fit for 3 matches. So let's just be real. I mean, we go back to King of the Ring 1998. That pay-per-view could have had 0 more Hell in a Cell matches because they destroyed that cage. They destroyed everything around them. That's why that match is such a classic. That's why everyone remembers it. Even the Cactus Jack Triple H one in 2000, the same way. It just stinks that Hell in a Cell can't be like that anymore because you can't go too far because we need the cage later in the night for another match.
Yeah, I don't like it. I think 2 is max. I'm with you though. I would do probably 1, but I don't mind 2. But you can't go more than 2. That's just me. And again, to your point, if you're gonna have spots like one of my favorite moments ever is when Taker throws Mankind Mick Foley onto the table off the cage. You can't destroy the cage and the around the ring area and just do it and have another match after. You can't have 2 matches like that. It's got to be 1, and that's it.
Yes. So that's going to do it for so far. I mean, obviously, I imagine there's going to be more matches. I think if there were only 4 matches on the card and they all were half an hour apiece, I might be pretty happy with that, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe WWE should go that route. I doubt they will, but very curious. As I said, right now, they've only got 4 matches scheduled. So I'm curious how this card will fill out. Probably this Friday on SmackDown, there'll be some more matches named. But let's move on to something we alluded to last week, and that's keeping on the Hell in a Cell theme. And speaking of too many Hell in a Cell matches, there's been over 40 Hell in a Cell matches. Now, we all love to talk about Mick Foley and Undertaker 98. We all love to talk about Shawn Michaels and Undertaker Bad Blood 97. We even like to move into the 2000s with the 6-man Armageddon cage and the Cactus Jack Triple H one, which I think might be my overall favorite. But when you have over 40 and you have so many iconic moments, it's not just fun to rehash and re-talk about the same exact moments for the rest of our lives. we've got to probably find some diamonds in the rough. I mean, there was 35 plus other Hell in a Cell matches. Frankly, I think there should probably be maybe 20-something matches because the Hell in a Cell's been around for about 23 years. So there should probably be about 23 matches. But WWE, with this Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, has made sure to shove about 3 down our throat per year instead of 1 per year or 1 every other year like it should be.
It takes away from the aura. It really does. Like, you're right. You got to have 1 a year. You can't have more than that because I think 1 really it keeps the aura around the Hell in a Cell where it's like a prestigious match. I think 1 a year is just the way you got to do it. I think they're overdoing it. I think they're overzealous with it.
Same with, I mean, it's like a Royal Rumble in my eyes. I mean, what keeps the Royal Rumble special is it's once a year. And I remember back in the day, like Hell in a Cell, what I liked about it is that and I've said it a million times, it's happened so organically that made me think when I was younger that like I would just love to be free and have money and hear that a Hell in a Cell match has been named and run out and buy tickets to go to that pay-per-view. Because I always thought it was like a Royal Rumble. It was, or even more rare than a Royal Rumble because it wasn't on a specific pay-per-view. It was something that like you won the lottery if you had tickets to Backlash and it happened to be main evented by a Hell in a Cell match, or you had tickets to a pay-per-view that happened to be main evented by an Elimination Chamber. Now it's stone that those events are going to have those matches. So, you know, it's not like winning a lottery. It's not like a crapshoot. You know you're going to get those events. And unfortunately, because of them, there's a lot of feuds that are forced into them and matches that maybe shouldn't be. But we, as we just said, are going to talk about some diamonds in the rough. And I've got, let's see, in front of me, I have 4 Hell in a Cell matches that I think are worth going back and not forgetting about in the amount of matches. And I'll start with one myself. This one I was pretty excited about. We talked about organically. This happened organically. These two fought at WrestleMania 21, a decent match. At Backlash was the rematch, or I think Judgment Day, one of the Raw pay-per-views. And then the trifecta to finish out this feud, Triple H, Batista, Vengeance 2005, a pretty bloody match. One of my favorites. I remember just being pumped to watch it. I think it was finally the age where I could purchase a pay-per-view with my own money in 2005. I didn't have to watch it on delay or later. I could get some people together and we could actually pay the money. And unfortunately, it ruined it a little for me because the next month I went and saw Batista and JBL live for the world title on SmackDown's pay-per-view, Great American Bash. And I knew I wasn't going to get that great of a main event because a month earlier, Batista finished out his time on Raw with Triple H in a Hell in a Cell. But yeah, I thought this was a great match. Really showed off Batista, really showed off why he should be world champion. Triple H was clamoring to get that belt back. He lost it at WrestleMania. He then lost. He didn't get it back at the next month's pay-per-view. It finished off a great feud. I think that's definitely one if you're going to go back to rewatch Vengeance 2005. What do you got for one?
Well, speaking of Batista, I will start with a Batista match myself. In the year 2007, a great year, by the way. That's when I graduated high school. So there was this major feud, and it was Batista Undertaker. 07 was that feud. And
yes.
If I remember off the top of my head, because I got to go back and watch the match, but I just remember watching it at the time. It culminated at that Survivor Series in 2007. It was a hell of a match. To me, that was Batista's best match he's ever had. And then just a little tease for later, a little bit later, Batista's on my list again. But I think this right here was the best match Batista ever had in WWE. That's just my opinion, and it happened to be in Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, at the start of that feud was WrestleMania that I attended, WrestleMania 23. Batista and The Undertaker, where Undertaker kept the streak going and won the belt from Batista. But they kept the feud going for the remainder of the year, and I think that is definitely a solid Hell in a Cell match. A Hell in a Cell match I'm going to pick that goes back to 2004. This was one I didn't watch live, but really wanted to, and then when I finally watched it, a lot of people say it went a little long. It was spots just for the sake of spots. But Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Bad Blood 2004. If I'm not mistaken, that might be the first ever brand-specific pay-per-view. Bad Blood 2004, Raw, Shawn Michaels, Triple H. Like, again, they've been going on that feud since they had that unsanctioned match in 2002 at SummerSlam. Shawn Michaels, in my eyes, he was at his best, I think, in the early 2000s. And it was like a 45-minute match. Definitely just worthy of a main event. Later on that year, they had an amazing 3 stages of hell match for the world belt as well at Armageddon. But that event right there, that pay-per-view, I just remember that was the year I graduated high school. I think it took place the night of my graduation party in 2004. But I went back and watched it. And yeah, it's why you want to buy a pay-per-view. There's those matches that you watch and you're like, this is why I wanted to drop $40 to watch wrestling. And this is why at this time, I mean, wrestling tickets aren't that expensive. But at that time, I didn't know how much it cost to go to a pay-per-view. I thought it cost maybe hundreds of dollars because that's what I would have paid. Like seeing the crowd at this pay-per-view was just watching it on TV at that time felt like you were there.
Yeah.
That kind of atmosphere for some of these matches.
That's a solid match. I gotta tell you, I got a match for you, and again, of course, I mean, I call him the godfather of Hell in a Cell matches. I can't have Hell in a Cell matches without too many takers. I got Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, No Mercy, 2002. To me, I thought this was one of Brock Lesnar's better matches too. I mean,
that's right there. I mean, the iconic moment with Brock Lesnar holding up the belt on top of the cage. You know, he was right in the feud with Undertaker. I think he just became. That's when they just started to split the championships between Raw and SmackDown. And Batista, after winning against The Rock, and that was Batista 2002. That was the best, or not Batista, Brock Lesnar. That was the best Brock Lesnar in my eyes right there. Brock Lesnar winning the King of the Ring, going on beating The Rock at SummerSlam, being exclusive to SmackDown, winning against The Undertaker at Unforgiven, and then Hell in a Cell at No Mercy. They've fought a bunch of times since then because, well, there's these pay-per-views to sell, and they probably fought, I think, 2 more times on top of that. But that original one, Taker and Brock Lesnar, early 2000s, I got that on my list as well. I'm going to finish out my list with actually a new one. I didn't want to just try to stay too close to the safety of the early 2000s because the idea was venture out past 2001. So I'm going to give you New Day and the Usos, Hell in a Cell 2017, just about 3 years ago. The New Day Usos feud I thought was great. I mean, every month they were fighting for the tag team belts. And that was one of these matches that I felt warranted Hell in a Cell because they just kept fighting over and over again and putting on some solid matches. And it kind of gives us a glimmer of what we can expect this weekend. Jey Uso, he's already been inside Hell in a Cell.
Yes, he has.
You know what I mean? And New Day Usos tag team match, I thought it was just, you know, it showed the New Day. We talk about many times their silly gimmick and, you know, being in the Kofi Kingston and throwing pancakes out. But when it comes down to actually wrestling matches and with the Usos who had the kind of tough, you know, city gimmick, it just went perfect together. And it was a great match. And
I want to kind of just kind of follow up with that. You'll probably agree with me on this. I think Usos and New Day, those matches they had together, no matter if it was a Hell in a Cell or just a regular tag match, those two teams have been, I think they're magic in the ring together. I think they always put on a good show. Every time they step in the ring in the last handful of years, when you see Usos and New Day in a match, I'm in. I'm locked in. I mean, it's just a fun matchup. I think you agree with me on that.
Yes. No, I mean, that feud they had in 2017, you know, was great. I mean, and it just we just kept wondering how many more times are we going to get this. It was one of those, I want to say we saw 5 or 6 months in a row at pay-per-views. But at least they tore the house down every time. What else you got in your favorite Hell in a Cell matches post 2001?
So I got one more because the other I had 2 more, but one of them was the Vengeance one that we talked about. That was your choice. So we kind of have the same ones there. This one's actually a newer one, I guess. I think if I'm doing my dates right, you were probably there. WrestleMania 28 was in 2012,
no,
I believe.
I wish I was there. I wasn't there. Miami, WrestleMania 28. The end of the era match you're speaking of, yes. Definitely the best WrestleMania Hell in a Cell match for sure. I mean, I was at a Hell in a Cell match where it was Undertaker and Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 32 in Dallas. But I think definitely the Undertaker Triple H with Shawn Michaels as a referee. I mean, WrestleMania 28 is definitely, I want to say that one might be the last WrestleMania or pay-per-view just in general where I wasn't there, but I really wish I was there, kind of like you had that kid feeling again with The Rock and Cena as your main event with a solid world title match with CM Punk and Chris Jericho, and then those guys in Hell in a Cell, because you literally thought they've been hyping up Rock and Cena, that the rest of WrestleMania was going to be just kind of an afterthought. But they were like, no, just because we're going to give you this main event you've been waiting for forever, it's still a WrestleMania, and we're still going to give you a Triple H, an Undertaker, Hell in a Cell match. I thought it was amazing. It was unique, being outdoors. I want to say probably still the only outdoor Hell in a Cell match ever. But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. An amazing match. Shawn Michaels, I mean, all those parties involved. Too bad it wasn't truly the end of an era. It was like Rolling Stone's first farewell tour.
Yeah, it's like Kiss's farewell tours. It just keeps going. It's like the never-ending farewell tours. But that, and I will, to add to your point, WrestleMania 28 as a whole was a good show. So I mean, and that was, to me, that was the match of the night. And Taker, Triple H, they always made magic. You put Taker, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, you put those three in a match together, even if it's it's one-on-one, you're making magic with those three no matter what. They are just made for each other. They're always fun to watch, and it's why I've been a fan for so long, because of the guys like that and the gals like that, where the chemistry in the ring is just so good that the story being told is just you just don't want to stop watching. You know what I mean?
Indeed. Well, that's going to finish our top Hell in a Cell matches. And it's funny that you bring up The Undertaker, because this show we've talked about so much stuff, so we'll have to save some stuff for next week, including The Undertaker.
Yeah.
Talk about him not being done yet, and there's a big pay-per-view coming up that marks his 30th anniversary in WWE, and a lot of stuff on top of that, not just Undertaker, but maybe someone else coming back that Vince McMahon just doesn't care if you don't like it or not, because someone else might come back as well. And Bound for Glory, going back to that just quickly, heard some rumors that, speaking of some returns, there might be some more WWE defectos making their way to Bound for Glory this weekend as well. So next week we'll talk who from WWE is going to show up at Bound for Glory this week, who from WWE needs to stay home and not come back for Survivor Series, who from WCW should have probably never even come to WWE, and now he should definitely probably stay out of WWE because he's definitely wearing out his welcome if he comes back yet again after he just had a disastrous return this past year around WrestleMania time, and a documentary that came out in the month of August this past year featuring David Arquette, someone else who had a good run in WCW, I guess, to no one's actual liking, but is trying to make good, and I think he might have a decent documentary on David Arquette. You can't kill David Arquette. We both watched that documentary about his return to wrestling, or let's say his debut in wrestling, because in 1999-2000, I don't necessarily know if you call that wrestling, but he wants to make good on him ruining wrestling back in the year 2000 in the city of Syracuse, New York. We'll talk about that documentary and so much more next week. For this week's edition, for Brandon Clements, I'm Jared Wicks. Make sure to follow the program, subscribe to the program, and we will see you and talk to you next week.